Look around the room you're sitting in right now. Because there's a solid chance the reason your goals feel so hard to reach has nothing to do with how motivated you are and everything to do with what's physically surrounding you. Most people believe the gap between where they are and where they want to be is a discipline problem. They think the answer is more effort, more willpower, more grinding. And for a long time, that's always been the message. But neuroscience has been quietly dismantling that idea, and the findings are genuinely hard to ignore. What we're going to walk through today is how your physical environment, the room you work in, the sounds around you, the light hitting your desk, the layout of your phone's home screen, is already making decisions for you way before your conscious brain even gets involved. And once you understand how that works, you can flip it in your favor. We'll go through the science behind why willpower isn't the weapon you think it is, how invisible energies in your space are steering your behavior right now, how to redesign your environment so it does the heavy lifting for you, and how to actually train your brain to enter a focused state on demand. Let's get into it. So here's the first thing that probably sounds more shocking than it should. Willpower is not a personality trait. It's a metabolic resource, and it runs out. Research published in the journal Neuroscience identifies the specific accumulation of glutamate in the lateral prefrontal cortex as the primary driver of cognitive fatigue. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, impulse control, and long-term thinking, is also the most computationally demanding region in the brain, handling planning, decision-making, impulse control, and the ability to choose a future reward over an immediate one. And here's the thing, it's also the youngest, most metabolically expensive, most stress-vulnerable structure in your skull. So every time you white-knuckle your way through a distraction, every time you force yourself to focus when your environment is working against you, you're drawing from a pool that has a hard biological ceiling. The metabolic cost of recycling the chemical glutamate increases significantly during periods of high demand, meaning the harder you push, the faster you burn through the very resource you need to keep pushing. Neuroimaging studies show that after sustained cognitive effort, prefrontal cortex activation patterns change in ways consistent with metabolic fatigue. The brain isn't running out of gas. It's shifting resources away from expensive executive function toward more efficient automatic processing. In plain words, your brain starts looking for shortcuts, and those shortcuts almost always point toward whatever is easiest in your immediate environment, not whatever is best for your long-term goals. This is where it gets really interesting, because rather than relying on motivation to power through moments of weakness, you can engineer the environment and timing to support the brain's natural control mechanisms. The people who seem effortlessly disciplined aren't necessarily stronger-willed. They've just built environments that make the right choice the easy choice, so their prefrontal cortex barely has to get involved. Now let's talk about how your environment is already making choices for you, because this part is genuinely wild when you see it clearly. Your brain is constantly scanning your surroundings for cues, and it's doing this well below the level of conscious awareness. Interventions such as which subtly change the environment in which individuals make decisions can be used to promote behavior change. The layout of a room, the placement of objects, the visibility of certain things over others, all of it is quietly dictating your next move before you've formed a single conscious intention. Researchers call this choice architecture, and the principle is simple. Whatever is most visible and most accessible in your environment is what your brain defaults to, especially when your willpower reserves are low. Think about your phone. If it's sitting face up on your desk, your brain is registering it as a priority object every few minutes, even when you're not touching it. A sterile, poorly ventilated workspace unknowingly decreases your focus over the course of a day, and a notification from your cell phones will make the job easier and faster for you to lose complete focus. Every ping, every badge, every glowing screen is a micro-interruption that costs you a small slice of cognitive bandwidth. Put it all together, and you've spent hours of mental energy without doing a single thing you actually planned to do. And it's not just your phone. It's the pile of unrelated papers on your desk, the browser tabs you left open, the TV in your peripheral vision, and so many other things. Sound is the most important sensory distraction with the most direct and measurable impact on office productivity and the one most frequently underspecified. Every one of these things is an invisible tax on your attention. And here's the thing, you don't feel it happening in real time. You just feel vaguely unfocused and frustrated, and you blame yourself for not being more disciplined. So what do you actually do about it? This is where we move from understanding the problem to actually building the solution. The first step is what you could call a friction audit. Walk through your space and ask one question for every object and every setup you see. Does this make the behavior I want easier, or does it make it harder? That's it. The goal is to reduce friction for the things you want to do and increase friction for the things you don't. If you want to read more, the book goes on the pillow. If you want to scroll less, the phone goes in a drawer in another room. The distance matters more than you'd think. A study on food placement found that people eat significantly more of whatever is closest to them, regardless of what it is. The same principle applies to every habit in your life. The second move is what high performers have quietly been doing for years, and it's almost embarrassingly simple. Place the tools for your most important work directly in your line of sight, and physically remove or hide the tools for your biggest distractions. That's the whole strategy. Your brain prioritizes the most salient object in a space, so you decide what that object is. If your journal is on your desk and your phone is in a drawer, you will journal more. If your gym bag is by the front door and your couch remote is buried under a cushion, you will work out more. You're not fighting yourself. You're designing a path of least resistance that leads where you actually want to go. Now, let's talk about the sensory layer, because this is where the real leverage comes in, and most people have never thought about it at this level. Offices and personal workspaces in 2026 are incorporating features like connected plant walls, furniture with built-in planters, adaptive lighting that follows natural rhythms, subtle nature-based sounds, and even scent experiences designed to create a more balanced, sensory-rich environment. And the reason this is becoming mainstream is because this actually works. Your brain doesn't just respond to what you see. It responds to everything around you simultaneously, and you can use that to your advantage. Research indicates that specific aromas influence the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for executive function and decision-making. Scents like rosemary and peppermint are consistently linked to increased alertness. Lavender shifts the nervous system toward calm. Smell has the power to elicit strong emotions and evoke memories because the limbic system, which controls mood and memory, is located next to the olfactory nerve. So when you pair a specific scent with a specific type of work consistently over time, your brain starts to wire those two things together. Eventually, just catching that scent in the air becomes a signal to your nervous system that it's time to focus. It's essentially a Pavlovian switch you've built for yourself. The same principle applies to sound. Low-frequency ambient noise, around 70 decibels, has been shown to support creative thinking. Binaural beats in certain ranges are associated with deeper concentration states, and temperature matters too. A slightly cooler room, somewhere in the range of 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, tends to keep alertness higher and drowsiness lower during cognitive work. None of this requires expensive equipment. It requires intention. You're stacking sensory signals that all point in the same direction, telling your brain, this is a place where focused work happens, and over time, your brain starts to believe it. All these combined together create an environment where all minds can shine and thrive, not by ticking boxes, but by thoughtfully tuning the workspace to respect diverse sensory needs. The goal isn't to design a quiet zone or flashy gadget room. It's to build a balanced ecosystem where every person's sensory wiring feels understood and supported, helping focus, creativity, and comfort flourish. We call this sensory stacking, and the reason it works so well is that it stops relying on your conscious mind to maintain focus and instead recruits your automatic nervous system to do it for you, thus making the focus state the default state. Here's the bigger picture. And this is the part that ties everything together. The first willpower bottleneck happens during glucose depletion, when the prefrontal cortex lacks the metabolic fuel needed for effortful control. The second occurs during emotional arousal, when the amygdala's threat response overwhelms executive function. The third emerges during cognitive load, when working memory resources are exhausted by competing demands. Every time you've designed your environment well, you've removed one of those bottlenecks before it ever becomes a problem. You're not saving willpower for dramatic moments of resistance. You're preserving it for the decisions that actually require creative thought, strategic thinking, and genuine problem solving. The people who seem to get the most done aren't the ones grinding the hardest. They're the ones who've made their environment do most of the work for them, so that by the time they sit down, the battle is already won. So here's your 24-hour starting point. Tonight, do one thing. Identify the single biggest friction point in your environment, the one thing that most reliably pulls you away from what you want to be doing, and physically move it. Put it somewhere inconvenient. Then, identify the one tool most connected to your most important goal and put it somewhere impossible to ignore. That's it. That's day one. Tomorrow, go one layer deeper. Look at your lighting. Look at your sound environment. Think about what your space is telling your nervous system when you walk in. Is it saying, this is a place to rest and scroll? Or is it saying, this is a place to build something? Because your brain is reading that message every single time, whether you're conscious of it or not. If this hit different for you, drop a comment below and tell me the one change you're going to make to your environment today. I read every comments, and I genuinely want to know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because this is the kind of content we put out every single week.